just this brilliant idea of, this would be something different in the NFL. So I think based on now how teams are and how owners are, the Packers organization gets run very differently because of our structure. We don't have an owner that's going to go head-to-head with a general manager or coach or anything because they don't like maybe they like this big, great player, but the coach is like, he doesn't fit our scheme or anything like that. So, and I think you sometimes see that, those kind of conflicts in the NFL. We don't have that, so I think it's interesting. From the actual owning the stock, though, I think probably most people realize this by now. It doesn't actually get you any benefits. It's really just a donation to the Packers organization when you buy it. So, I mean, you get a certificate and you get invited to the annual meeting, but, there's no value to resell it. We don't get annual dividends or anything on it. It's just something different. It's cool. It kind of plays into the whole allure of Lambeau, the smallest market, biggest team, the smallest market kind of thought for the Packers. Okay. And I say all this, and, this is everything I was going to say when we had talked about the topic, but then I did a little bit of research last night, and I actually learned there is a rule that other teams can't do this now.
Oh, okay.
No idea. I think it was implemented sometime in the 60s, and it's referred to as the Green Bay Packers rule.
Okay.
And it says, the NFL bylaws or whatever official document the NFL has is teams can't be owned by like a public charity, which is technically that's what the Green Bay Packers are owned by.
Okay.
Instead of any one individual, because they limit the number of stock any one person can hold and things like that.
Yeah. I guess.
So I didn't realize that either. I'm like, I just don't think any of the current owners would give it up, and I don't know if someone could, do this again where there wasn't a money-making aspect to it, just because of the times we live in. But I guess there's an actual rule that says they can't either.
I guess that kind of makes sense that they are, a charitable organization, considering you've given the division to the Vikings and the Bears the last 2 seasons. So I get it. So that also makes more sense to me now. But no, of course, I guess that also makes sense that it can't be owned by, a public charity. So that okay. Good to know. So I got to do some more research on it myself.
Back for the day.
Perfect. So I will bring this to my girlfriend and let her know that this is a rule, so that you guys are lucky to be the only team that can do this. Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah.
So moving on to the NBA, the Houston Rockets right now, they were a Western Conference, one win from the NBA Finals a season ago. Couldn't get it done against the Warriors in Game 6 or Game 7, but they're back this season. Had a slump to the start, but have come back in this crazy Western Conference where you still have teams that are it goes. I think the 10th team in the West, Sacramento Kings, is at 500 and is not in a playoff position right now, where the Rockets are only a 6 seed with a 24-17 record early on. Now, a lot of it has to do with the resurgence of James Harden putting up triple doubles, as I mentioned, 43 points in a triple double effort last night against the Cavaliers. I don't know how hard it is to do against the Cavaliers this season, but hey, whatever. I don't know how much NBA you watch, Sean, but how do you think is he the runaway MVP right now so far this season?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, my NBA watching increases the closer we get to playoff time.
Okay.
Because it's the only professional sports league that I don't have a real favorite for.
Okay.
So, I've still always been in the market for a team, still trying to decide, but I haven't found the one yet. It used to be the Nets, but once they left New Jersey, I just couldn't go with them. But from what I've seen so far, without a doubt, he's got to be the front runner. The numbers he's putting up, he's in the, almost every day something comes out, on the internet, and it's like, Harden just tied or broke this record held by Kobe or something like that. And, anytime you're in that conversation, you're obviously should be in the MVP conversation. And he's keeping, I know you said the West is crazy, and even with their record, they're only looking at a 6 seed. But think about it. He's keeping his team there without Chris Paul. And, that's got to be important, because I think when Paul first went out, the Rockets did struggle a little bit, and it hasn't been, I'd say, maybe a couple games before Christmas where this whole streak started for Harden?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, this is what he does. He takes over teams And Chris Paul, he's been injured throughout his Houston Rocket career, but when it comes down to it, we know that James Harden is the number one option. That's just a fact.
Absolutely.
But, in the Western Conference, it is very difficult to maintain pace. A lot of it, Houston Rockets' early struggles had to do with the fact that they didn't have a lot of defensive help. They lost Luke Mbamute in the offseason. They lost Trevor Ariza in the offseason. And they didn't get back anyone else that would be helpful from the defensive perspective. So they've just had to put on 140 points a night to have an opportunity, in which what they've done fairly successfully, including beating the Warriors during this run as well. So, if this team stays healthy and has the same potential, Sean, are they the best team in your mind that can compete with the Warriors in the West? Or is there another team out there that you have in mind that could maybe pull off an upset?
I think they're in the conversation. I almost look at, there's just multiple teams that I still do think the Warriors at the end of the day have an incredible amount of talent and are kind of the standard. They're almost the Patriots of the NBA, where, they don't have quite as long of a run or anything, but they have what they need to win. And, I know they're not having the season they did a couple years ago where they were setting all kinds of records and things, but, those guys can still play. I do think Harden playing like this, they can definitely beat the Warriors. Can they do it in a series? I don't know. But I'd say the same thing about the Thunder. I've always been a huge Westbrook supporter. I think Paul George being there, I do think George is a great player. So, I think on any given night, I think they can do it too. But again, that comes down to, can they do it in a series? And then there's the Nuggets. Maybe there's something special about the Nuggets this year. I don't know. Again, in a series, looking at a series, can it be done? Maybe.
I'm not opposed to the idea, and I've mentioned this, and people just shoot it down immediately without actually giving it a lot of thought. Like, it's a team that is fairly well balanced across the board. Their biggest superstar, I believe, is Nikola Jokic, and he's been a triple-double machine in his own right from a center position, which is very undervalued and underused these days. But he seems to be the key component that makes these Denver Nuggets go. Now, the downside is, what can they do from a backcourt perspective that can compete with the Warriors? And they do have Jamal Murray, who can go off. I think he had a career-high 50 points a couple weeks ago and went off. So there's some potential there. The LA Clippers, for some reason, are doing well without any of their stars. So that it's just a team effort there, and I think that's what people forget, that yes, while one person can make or break a team in some respects, there are four other players there that also need to contribute in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise you'd have teams like, the Wizards, who aren't that great. You have with the Knicks, who are absolutely terrible right now. It is a team effort, so you have to build out that roster. And even Anthony Davis in New Orleans, obviously there's rumors of him trying to move. But he's a top 10 player in the league in his own right, and he can't get the Pelicans. It takes a monumental effort for him just to get them to an 8 seed. So,
right, and that's in the East, which I know isn't as quite what it was a couple of years ago, but that used to be embarrassing.
It's a tough conference in its own right still, and I think the East is getting better. I think they've been improving, especially with what Toronto could be a competitor with Kawhi Leonard. You have Milwaukee with Giannis and what he can do. They beat the Rockets the other night, so it's not that they can't compete with West Coast teams. It's just it's very interesting across the board. But for now, I think Harden's the MVP until LeBron, for some reason, gets the Lakers to a top 2 seed. So if he does that, then I'll give it to LeBron this year. Fine, whatever. He's an okay player, like when he likes to be. So, Sean, we'd like to do a final topic on the show. I still like to keep that segment. So it could be whatever you want. So if it wants to be sports-related, you can do that. Mine's not going to be sports-related, so it's you don't have to make it that way. But, just what's your final topic that you got in your mind?
Yeah, so, I think it starts in sports, and you mentioned the situation earlier that I'm going to talk about, but I think it leads into a bigger picture argument, which I won't belabor the point too much, but the reaction to Kobe Parkey missing the kick last week. To the degree that people got upset about it to the degree people said things and made threats. Like, it just blows my mind. And especially in this situation where it ended up not being his fault. So it's, we're always so quick to rush to judgment and to crucify someone behind the safety of our own keyboards. And this is where it doesn't just hold to Cody Parkey's blocked kick, but like everything really and how things are going these days. And I don't know what the fix is for that, because all of our access and connectedness isn't going away anytime soon. It's only going to continue to increase. But I think we got to find a way to get back to some basics of our humanity. Like, for people to get that invested. Don't get me wrong, I love sports. I love the teams I follow. I can be critical of those teams, but I'm never going to get to the point where I'm so invested, I'm personally attacking, a professional athlete. I think, if you want to go scroll through all my Twitter, yeah, when Mason Crosby had a couple bad games this year, I definitely made comments like, oh, is it time to bring someone else in? Do we have to think about it? Especially, that Lions game where there were 5 missed field goals. But there was no point where I was so upset about it that I had to film myself reacting in this over-the-top fashion and saying terrible things about him. It's one thing to have a fair critique from a purely athletic perspective, is there other talent out there that I obviously would want a team to consider that I'm following them. Mm-hmm. But, I'm just worried that it's become such an outlet, and not just sports, but just being able to say things online that you're upset about, what's going on in your life that the Bears losing that game is such a momentous big deal? Like, yeah, I'm crushed the Packers didn't make the playoffs, but I'm still okay.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I think Barack Obama said it, and if I'm not, I may be wrong, but I think if on that Netflix show where he was with David Letterman, mentioned the greatest asset to humanity is social media, and the greatest downside is social media. I think it's tough. Because and obviously you can translate it to whatever, whether it be the political climate now or what other subject may have you. It's all about what your instant reaction is now, and it's people want to see it, people want to criticize it, people want to feel it, whatever, what have you. And to see that, to see him getting booed, running off the field in a place where players are typically beloved for the most part. I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why you're upset, but, people don't do that. As a Portland Timbers fan, just to bring my perspective into it, whether we win or lose, we have our Timbers Army section, which is our fanatic section. Whether we win or lose, we clap up after the game, we do some chants and say thank you, just because it's an opportunity, it's a lucky opportunity just to have a team, number one, and number two, just for them to be competing. Doesn't matter if they get blown out or not. The fact that they're competing hard and day in and day out, it just shows a testament to what maybe the city might be feeling. So it's also a different perspective as well, and how leadership in those fanatic groups may be. It's easy to go up to a blog and post things and be critical, but to film yourself, that's a little much. Like, I think there needs to be a button for social media to be like they upload it, social media analyzes it and says, "Are you sure you want to upload this?" Because I don't think, there are things that I criticize about the president, and I'm okay saying that on the podcast. I don't have a problem saying that.
Right.
But before I do, I type it out 4 or 5 times, but then I just delete it because I don't want to be known as that guy, as that person that's overly critical of every little thing. I can voice my opinions in other ways. Like, it's not just there are ways to be more constructive, and I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the kick was blocked. So
it's
not Parkey's fault.
Right. It is blocked. So I'm going to agree with you there, but I will say that Jay Feely on Twitter, speaking of social media, did say that kickers should be kicking it higher. But that's
that's fair.
That's on the other point. They shouldn't be kicking low enough for it to be.
And if people want to have that conversation, great. But
that's fine.
There's no death threats needed in that.
No, there isn't. I just don't think that is That's the case there. Cool. Do you have any more